By means of these meritorious deeds, may I never join with the foolish, may I join always with the wise, until the time I attain Nibbana. May the suffering be free from suffering, may the fear-struck be free from fear, may the grieving be free from grief, so too may all beings be. From the highest realm of existence to the lowest, may all beings arisen in these realms, with form and without form, with perception and without perception, be released from all suffering and attain to perfect peace. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Now friends, I want to continue this talk on equanimity. Last week we started it. I didn't have time to complete. Today I want to start that. I hope I can finish it today. There are 10 kinds of equanimity, and some of them of course overlap, but let us focus our mind on these 10 kinds of equanimity. 6-factored equanimity. Number 2, equanimity as a divine abiding. Equanimity as an enlightenment factor. Equanimity of energy. Equanimity about formations. Equanimity as feelings. Equanimity about insight. Equanimity as specific neutrality. Equanimity of jhana and equanimity of purification. These are the 10 kinds of equanimity. Let us take each in turn and try to understand them a little more. 6-factored equanimity is the Arahant's unbiased responses, free of attachment and aversion towards pleasant and unpleasant sense objects. Just like us, they too see object, hear sounds, smell smells, taste food, and feel the touch, and have mind objects. But we, ordinary people who have not developed their mind to the degree that Arahants have, and therefore when they see a pleasant object, they are delighted. If they see unpleasant object, they are not delighted. They don't sort of withdraw their attention. So the ordinary people have different reactions towards the objects they see. Similarly, objects they hear, sound they hear, smell and so forth, their reaction is different. But enlightened person does not have that kind of reaction, no biases, no prejudices, attachment or detachment. When they see forms, hear sounds, and so forth. That is, they remain equanimous. That is, called six-factored equanimity. Six factors means through six senses they experience things, and from at each experience they have equanimity. Then the next is equanimity as divine abiding. Is a socially directed meditative state marked by the transcending of approval or resentment towards living beings. That is sublime attitude of impartiality, which looks upon all beings equally, without preferences or discrimination. That is what we have in four Brahma-vihara. In the four Brahma-vihara, the last one is equanimity. Most of the time people talk about metta, loving friendliness. Friends, when we practice loving friendliness, other three sublime states or Brahma-viharas naturally develop. So wherever the Buddha mentioned about metta practice, he mentioned karuna, mudita, upekka, all the four. And therefore there is one factor called equanimity, which is very much like metta. When we practice metta, there is no discrimination. We call it boundless, illimitable practice. Same is with equanimity, compassion and appreciative joy. So this equanimity therefore is called equanimity of Brahma-vihara or divine abiding. Brahma-vihara, Brahma means divine, vihara means abiding, Brahma-vihara means divine abiding. Third kind of equanimity is equanimity of as a factor of enlightenment that we have been discussing. This is the last factor of enlightenment, preceded by mindfulness, investigation, energy, tranquility, concentration, and this is the last one, factor of enlightenment. Mindfulness, investigation, energy, rapture, tranquility and concentration. And the last is equanimity. And the fourth kind of equanimity is equanimity of energy. That is, equanimity balances energy by avoiding or exerting or laxity. Sometimes the person can be lethargic or too relaxed, or sometimes exert too much energy. So equanimity intervenes and put these two extremes in balance. That is the fourth kind of equanimity. And fifth kind of equanimity is equanimity about formations. That is called sankhara upekka. Sankhara upekka is actually a fact of equanimity as well as it belongs to wisdom. When the mind is equanimous, it also is full of wisdom, and it looks at detached indifference upon the phenomena that comes within the senses and sensory experience, and that is the equanimity maintains the balance and keep it free from clinging or rejecting. No clinging, no rejecting. In the case of serenity meditation, it consists in the detachment from the 8 sets of factors to be surmounted by the 8 attainments. 8 attainments are the attainments, 4 jhanas and 4 arupas. 4 jhanas and arupas is sometimes commonly, generally talked as immaterial jhanas. They are not called jhanas, I mentioned it earlier. They are called arupas. Jhanas are called the Ditta Dhamma Sukha Vihara, and arupas are called Santa Vimokha Arupa. These are 2 technical terms for these 2 groups of categories of names of meditation, meditative attainment. Jhanas are 4, arupas are 4, and arupas are called immaterial jhanas. It is not correct term, but it is commonly used. Now, so in both cases anyway, equanimity remained very powerful. That is tranquility meditation. In the case of insight meditation, it is the mental composure that evolves for the purpose of gaining the path and fruits. For gaining, for instance, Sotapatti path and Sotapatti phala, when one practices this, look at the conditioned things called sankharas with equanimity. In other words, meditators see all sankharas are without self. Sabbe sankhara anatta, without self. One sankhara without self, another sankhara without self, another. What are the all sankharas? I mentioned 6 categories of sankharas last time. 6 categories, and we can divide them into 2. One category is kaya sankhara, vachi sankhara, chitta sankhara, inhaling, exhaling, kaya sankhara, thought of nekkhamma sankalpa, vyapada sankalpa, these thoughts are called vachi sankhara, and feeling and perception are called mind sankhara, mental sankhara, or mano sankhara, or chitta sankhara. Sankhara, as you know, the conditioner. Mind, when feeling and perception arises, that conditions the mind. When thought of renunciation, thought of loving friendliness and compassion conditions the mind, conditions our talk with thought of renunciation arises, we talk about renunciation. When the thought of compassion arises, we talk about compassion. When the thought of loving friendliness arises, we talk about loving friendliness. Therefore, in order to make these speeches in this way, we have to have this thought in the mind first. As we said, sankhara, kaya sankhara is inhaling, exhaling. That is related to the body, and also it conditions our body by bringing oxygen into our lungs and keep charging every cells in our body constantly all the time. And these are three types of sankharas. And other three sankharas are called punya-visankhara, apunya-visankhara, ananya-visankhara. Punya-visankhara means wholesome activities, wholesome mental, verbal, physical activities. Punya-visankhara, apunya-visankhara is unwholesome thoughts, words and deeds, and imperturbable. And ananya means imperturbable. Especially three santa vimokha, four santa vimokha, four kind of material attainment, as we mentioned, arupa attainment, are imperturbable. They are so steady and firm. Therefore, they are called imperturbable sankharas. So these are the six kind of sankharas. So when they, in all these sankharas, equanimity remains, and this equanimity is very powerful in them. Then equanimity of feeling. Equanimity as a feeling. That is neutral feeling. Feeling which is neither painful nor pleasant. That is called adukkama sukha vedana. That's equanimity as feeling. Then number 7, equanimity about insight, indifference towards further investigation, the characteristics of the phenomena after these have been investigated. So once we investigate all the phenomena, mental, physical, verbal and so forth, we come to a state, the mind settles down, then there is nothing more to investigate, examine, check, and then the mind remains settled. That is the equanimity called equanimity of insight. Then there is another equanimity, number 8, equanimity as a specific neutrality. In Pali it is called tatra majjhatata. Tatra majjhatata is a mental factor responsible for maintaining balance among the component factors in the beautiful, that is Subha, state of consciousness. When the beautiful state, what are the beautiful states? The metta, loving friendliness, is a beautiful state of mind. Compassion, and then appreciative joy, and patience. These are very beautiful mental states. When these mental states arises, the mind maintains equanimity without over jubilant or over depressed state of consciousness. Then according to the Abhidhamma, specific neutrality is present in every beautiful mental consciousness. In every beautiful consciousness, equanimity is present in order to giving balance and harmony to the virtuous practice. people sometimes shed tears when they are full of joy, full of saddha. And that way they become overly emotional. They are doing wonderful things, and then at that time they feel so delighted, emotional, they even cry. So when this mental factor called equanimity is present, it balances it. So as mental factor, specific neutrality can assume different forms in different contexts. In fact, we have already seen earlier the factors of enlightenment. As a factor of enlightenment, last factor of enlightenment, it has a different function. And equanimity of jhana, when we attain jhanas, I think I mentioned it earlier, when we attain the third, even in the first jhana, second jhana, equanimity is present, but it is not powerful, therefore it is insignificant and not mentioned as a mental factor. But when we come to the third jhana, equanimity comes to prominence, become more significant, noticeable. That is why pitya viraga upekha koja viharati. Joy is fading away, then equanimity emerges. When we come to the fourth jhana, equanimity and mindfulness both are equally powerful and purified. Therefore, it is called upekha satiparisuddhi, chaturtha jhana. That is the ninth state of what you call equanimity. And tenth is actually the fourth jhana itself. Ninth is in third jhana. It emerges but not powerful. But when it comes to fourth jhana, it becomes pure. So therefore, fourth jhanic equanimity is mentioned separately as number 10. Now, let me continue this with the explanation Buddha has given in another discourse called Salayantanika Vibhanga Sutta. Salayatana Vibhanga Sutta. That explanation is very, very important to remember. And there Buddha called 36 positions of beings, and these 36 positions are on feelings. And what are these 36 positions? There are 6 kinds of joy based on household life, and 6 kinds of joy based on renunciation, and 6 kinds of grief based on household life, and 6 kinds of grief based on renunciation. There are 6 kinds of equanimity based on the household life, and 6 kinds of equanimity based on renunciation. Now, Buddha explained, I simply use the Buddha's explanation. When one sees forms. One sees forms. It is cognizable by the eye, that are wished for, desired, agreeable, gratifying, and associated with worldliness. The form we see, they are pleasant, acceptable, gratifying, agreeable, and then joy arises. So, when one sees object now or remembers seeing object in the past, I have been to such and such a place, I saw such and such a thing, and remembering that and also seeing currently some pleasant objects, joy arises in the person's mind. And such a joy is called joy based on the household life. Similarly, hearing a sound. Now the person hears a sound, very pleasant, beautiful, agreeable, gratifying. Or person smells, or person remembers hearing some music, talk in the past. Either the person hears something now or remembers something that person heard before, another time. In both cases, joy arises. Similarly, smelling. When one smells something very pleasant now or remembers something pleasant that person had in the past. And then the taste. Now the person is tasting something very pleasant or remembers a taste that the person had in the past. And the touch. The person touches something now, very pleasing, pleasant, or remembers touching something in the past. Or the thought that arises now, or thought arisen in the past. Depending on all these, joy, pleasure arises. That is called joy based on household life. Then, same object, another person, renunciant, one who is dedicated to spiritual life, has developed the mind to some extent, also experience the same thing. Pleasant object now, pleasant object in the past. Just like the ordinary person. But the renunciant has a different way of seeing. The renunciant sees something deeper that ordinary people don't see. They cannot see that clearly, but that person, renunciant, sees. What does the person sees? This is impermanent. This is impermanent. This is changing. This is fading away. This ceases. What I am seeing now, what I have seen in the past, what I hear now, what I heard in the past, what I smell now, what I smelt in the past, what I taste now, what I tasted in the past, what I touch now, what I have touched in the past, what thought arose in me now, and thought arose in me in the past. All of them are, without any exception, are impermanent, unsatisfactory, changing. That is the core heart of truth. You cannot debate or cannot have dispute over that. That is a 100% true truth. And one person hits the truth, he knows there's nothing to go beyond. Joy arises in the person's mind. I mentioned ordinary person, when they experience impermanence, they have suffering, dukkha. When renunciant experience impermanence, they have joy, happiness. See the difference. Different attitude, different mental states. And then the next is ordinary people experience same thing now, but sight, sound, smell and so forth, they are not agreeable. They are not gaining pleasure. The form, sound, smell, taste, touch and thought. And also in the past, the person thinks, oh, I could not have such and such, I did not see such and such, I could not hear such and such, oh, poor me. So he grieves. Other people had all these things, but I didn't have them. Grief arises in the person's mind. When the renunciant sees the same thing, he says, even now, it is impermanent, unsatisfactory, without self. In the whatever was in the past, what I saw, heard, smelled, tasted, touched and thought, also were impermanent, unsatisfactory and selfless. What is the big deal? The person will not have a grief. But person thinks, I have been seeing them impermanent, unsatisfactory, but I know somebody else who also has seen impermanent, unsatisfactory, and that person has attained stream entry. Once eternal stage. Never, I have not attained anything. That way he regrets for not attaining higher level of enlightenment. In that way the person has grief, not for not getting any material things, but that person is grieving for not attaining liberation, even though the person sees impermanence, unsatisfactoriness and selflessness. That is the renunciant's grief. Then householder's equanimity is also based on household perception. Similar, just like before, the person sees, hears and so forth, experiences same object through six senses, and that person has ignorance as underlying tendency of equanimity, of it is called, Buddha's word is rupang so nati vattati. He cannot go penetrate or go beyond what he experienced through his sense. And therefore, he arises, equanimity arises in him. He tries and tries and tries and tries to obtain. He wants to see all kind of things. He wants to hear all sort of things. But he always fail. And then he will give up. I think you all remember the very famous sour grapes of the fox. Eventually, I don't need that. That kind of attitude, so ordinary people have, that's called equanimity based on household life. On the other hand, renunciant, one who has been practicing meditation, Dhamma, sees, hears, smells, tastes and so forth. Now and also in the past he has seen, heard and so forth, all objects like before. But in each case he sees impermanence, unsatisfactoriness and selflessness. Therefore he has a sankhara upekha. Sankhara upekha. As we mentioned in the in our list of 10 kinds of upekha, one is called sankhara. Everything is impermanent, unsatisfactory and selfless. So that kind of equanimity is called equanimity based on renunciation. Now, this is how the person deals with them. So, depending on relying on 6 kinds of joy based on renunciation, this person abandons and surmounts the 6 kinds of joy based on household life. Renunciant, depending on joy, joy that is arisen as what you call 6 kinds of joy based on renunciation. Based on that person abandons and surmounts 6 kinds of joy based on household life. So that way he has abandoned that. Then, depending on relying on of 6 kinds of grief, on renunciation, he abandoned and surmounted 6 kinds of grief based on household life. And depending and relying on 6 kinds of equanimity based on renunciation, he abandoned 6 kinds of equanimity based on household life. Now, what he has now is renunciant joy, grief, and equanimity based on renunciation is with him. Now, by depending and relying on 6 kinds of equanimity based on equanimity, he abandons and surmounts 6 kinds of joy based on renunciation. And then he has only renunciation, what you call equanimity. He abandoned, depending on grief on renunciation, he abandoned household grief with equanimity based on renunciation. He abandoned equanimity based on household life. Now what he has? Equanimity, remaining only equanimity. And equanimity also has two kinds. One is equanimity based on unity, equanimity based on what you call variety. Equanimity regarding the base of the variety. Variety means 6 kinds of equanimity. And other equanimity is based on unity. Equanimity that what you call is the diversified based on diversity, and equanimity based on unity and based on unity. What is diversified equanimity? Equanimity coming from eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body and mind, as we mentioned earlier. So based on equanimity on unity, he abandoned equanimity of diversified equanimity. Now he has only equanimity based on unity. What is the unity? Attainment of Santamaka 4 arupa attainments. In all of them he has equanimity, all of them together is called equanimity based on unity. That means there is no variation, difference in that. And that also has two kinds. Equanimity based on unity also has two kinds. What are the two kinds? Equanimity based on atammayata and thammayata. Atammayata and thammayata. Atammayata means, thammayata means person thinking that this equanimity is mine. Tongue, mayata, that is mine. And based on atammayata, he gets rid of thammayata. That means the other equanimity is the equanimity without thinking that it is mine. It is pure equanimity. There is no owner, no one to possess it. Thammayata is equanimity. One thinks that equanimity is mine. That means attribute an owner to equanimity. The last equanimity is without ownership, pure, simple equanimity. Of all equanimities, that is the highest kind of equanimity one has to maintain. Who maintains that kind of equanimity are the Buddhas, Pacceka Buddhas and Arahants. Even Anagamis don't have that kind of equanimity. Why? Because they still have Rupa Raga, Arupa Raga, Mana, Uddha, Chavijja. Therefore, even Anagamis don't have that kind of equanimity. Highest kind of equanimity with atammayata. That means the equanimity without ownership of equanimity is in the mind of Arahant, Pacceka Buddhas and fully enlightened Buddhas. That is the end of today's talk, friends. I took little longer time to explain this as quickly as possible. And tomorrow you can ask me questions if my explanation today is not very clear. With this, I want to end the session with my regular metta wish. May all those who are suffering in hospital taken care of by very compassionate doctors, nurses, and so forth, recover very quickly and continue their Dhamma practice and liberate themselves from samsaric suffering. All the doctors, nurses, and hospital staffs who are dedicating their life, sacrificing their comfort, risking their own life to take care of very serious patients, and may they continue their wonderful service and continue their Dhamma practice and liberate themselves from samsaric suffering. All those who have been grieving the passing away of their loved ones, may they be free from grief, as we mentioned earlier, and continue their Dhamma practice, understanding the true nature of the life, and liberate themselves from samsaric suffering. All others who are supporting in many ways, financially, physically, as well as various things, may they continue their very noble service for the sake of humanity, and they also practice Dhamma and liberate themselves from samsaric suffering. May everyone, some of them are in trouble spots, in political, economics, and wars and so forth, in various ways they are suffering, and may they be free from suffering, have some comfort, peace, happiness, and liberate from samsaric suffering. This is my very sincere metta wish, and may all of you attain liberation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Sadhu.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Teruvan
Sadhu,
Saranai.
sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, Bhante. Teruvan Saranai.
Everyone, Saranai.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.